read the last Ronin issue number 5. Nope, haven't read it yet. No, I have not read it yet. You guys really want me to read the last Ronin issue number 5 this badly? Alright, you guys pressured me into it, and I read the last Ronin issue number 5. Yes, finally we got that issue. I didn't think it was ever going to happen. A lot of you probably didn't think it was going to happen. But we did get it out finally, and I finally read it. Now, I did have a lot of preconceived notions about this issue, about where the series was going, and was I right? Yes and no. Let's just talk about it, a general overview of everything, of how I thought about how the series went so far. Issue number 1, I think we all agree, issue number 1 was perfect, knocked it out of the park, home run all day. Issue number 2, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was just a perfect pickup from where issue number 1 left off. And then we get to issue number 3, and it kind of goes like this, and then we get to issue number 4, and straight off the edge of the cliff. I still haven't finished it, but I knew what was going to happen. You kind of figure it out halfway through. You can see where it's going, and then if you just pick up in issue number 5, you find out, like, okay, they attacked the island that Baxter Stockman was on. They, took out all of the machinery and all of his stuff, so that left Hiroto pretty much standing naked, which is where we pick up here with Michelangelo having some really interesting conversations with the brothers. And you can really see here where it's just like it's basically different parts of his conscience, and the self-doubt that's coming through basically the voices of his brothers. There was some really harsh things said by his brothers, but honestly I think it was just a lot of self-doubt, and him not really not believing that he could do what he knew needed to be done. Now, I will say the fact that we did see Michelangelo take on Hiroto one-on-one, start to finish, without the help of Casey Jones Jr., a.k.a. Nightwing, surprised me. It really surprised me. And honestly, I think that's probably what took so long, because I guarantee you guys, I shouldn't say I guarantee you, but I'd be willing to bet that their original plans was to have Casey Jones have a much bigger effect on the end of this story than she did. But I don't think that I'm the only one. Actually, I know I'm not the only one that was voicing their opinions on how we felt about where the story was going with her involvement. I am glad to say, spoiler alert, by the way, I am glad to say they did change it, or I was wrong. Either way, it didn't happen. Casey Jones Jr. was not the big fancy hero at the end, saving Michelangelo in the city. We saw some really great art here. That's one thing I will say. Throughout this entire atrocity, it has had some fantastic artwork all the way throughout. But we did see Michelangelo going head on right at Hiroto, setting off explosions throughout his tower. He's making his way through all of the foot soldiers, which are just people because they took out all of Baxter Stockman's robot foot soldiers. So now we just have basically like Michelangelo said, these are just regular untrained ninjas at this point. I mean, these guys, I wouldn't say untrained, but they haven't really had to do much as of late for a while. So you just see literally piles and piles of bodies, bloodied, and weapons everywhere. He killed them all, which was awesome to see. I like to see that kind of graphic measures taken with the artwork. It really gives us that sense of the original Mirage Studios run, especially in the issue number 1, because there was a lot of that in there. So it's cool to see that. And cool to see Michelangelo just making his way through all of them. And, you know, these are guys that have basically just been kind of sitting on their hands for the last 10 years, so they haven't really had to fight too much. Now, he did have to fight, like, these big robots, and I don't know, the samurai robot guy that looked like kind of like it almost looked like a Batman or a bat or something. I don't know. I thought that was kind of goofy, but he made quick work of both of them. And then you get Hiroto. Finally, he's face to face with Hiroto, and they start jawing back and forth at each other, talking a little smack. We find out Hiroto actually has not been holding on to his mother's body out of love. It's basically just out of spite, so that she, he can hopefully, have her awaken long enough to tell her that he did what she could not do. And then he ends up just breaking through that glass coffin or whatever it is. So I'm assuming he killed her at that point. So I don't know. We all know Hiroto has got a little bit of a temper problem here. But then we start the fight, and before we start the fight, at this point we've only seen Hiroto. He did ask for his armor earlier, so I was kind of expecting, almost like when we saw that robot, I thought that was Hiroto, and I was like, Jesus, my God, this is horrible. Luckily, that was not Hiroto. Of course, I won't say that the armor he did have was a whole heck of a lot better. We saw a silhouette of Hiroto in his armor in several panels before we got the reveal, and that silhouette resembles Shredder. It really looked like, I was like, oh my gosh, does he have Shredder's armor on? Like, how cool would that be? No, he actually, he looked like a mix between a Power Ranger and a Beetleborg. I don't know. I don't even know if anybody even knows what Beetleborgs are, but he looked like an evil Power Ranger, basically, which most of the time I'd be all for, but for this, I don't. For this, the armor, the design, it just did not work for me. Obviously, it changed a little bit when he started to fight, because he could kind of control the armor and make it basically heal itself. Like if it was damaged, it would just kind of fix itself. And I will say, when it was like when he made it turn all silver, it looked a lot better. But when it was just the normal white suit, like it looked god awful in my opinion. I was not a fan of the design of Hiroto's armor there. I honestly wish they would have went with something a little more simple. And even though there was parts of it that gave homage to Shredder, with the wings on the helmet, and the hand what do you call it? The hand daggers. I'm not sure what you call it, but there were some similarities, very small, but they were there to Shredder's original armor. But I would have liked to have seen it either, something completely different, but not as out there, or don that old Shredder armor, man. Like, take that old Shredder armor and maybe he revamped it, did something to it. I understand that right now they're way into the future, so they had to add some futuristic aspects to it, and that's fine. I mean, all in all, it wasn't the most dreadful thing they could have come up with, but I don't know. For me, it just, I don't know. When you look at Michelangelo and what he's wearing and his attire, and then you see this armor and all this, I'm just like, man, are these even from the same universe? Like, it's just, but we are talking about Ninja Turtles, so I mean, we don't even want to get into what comes in different universes and all. I guess it works for the story, but I just personally didn't care for the design. Now, the fight scenes, I will say I enjoyed the fight scenes. We did see Michelangelo take an absolute beating. We saw him use each one of his brother's weapons, and every time he did it, was like, this is a big, screw you from Raphael, and here's a hello from Donatello, and this is a big thanks from Leonardo. I couldn't remember who I said, but he did get in his licks for his boys, so that was cool. And they end up falling out of the tower, falling into like a water tower. Basically, they're just fighting from the top of this tower all the way down until they end up in the sewer, getting spit out of the sewer. And basically, they're right there where the story began, right there in that nasty, muddy water outside of the city of that island, where we saw Michelangelo in the very beginning of issue number 1. And I still don't quite understand exactly what happened. I think Michelangelo took a grenade and he stabbed Raphael's side into the armor, and before it could heal, I guess he stuffed the grenade into the armor, and the armor healed around it, and he took him underwater, and it exploded, and I guess that killed Hiroto. That's kind of how I took it. It wasn't like extremely clear what caused the big explosion on Hiroto, for Hiroto to explode basically and die. But that's kind of how I took it. So if you saw something different or took it differently, please drop a comment. Let me know. But I did say several times, if Michelangelo does not die at the end of this story, for me, it's not complete. As sad as it is, Michelangelo's got to die. He's got to complete the mission, and in my eyes, the only way for that mission to be complete was he has to go out too. And I do think that they did build Hiroto up in this issue a lot more as a big bad, because up to that point, he really didn't. I mean, it was hard to buy that this guy was actually a threat. But we did see in this issue, he does pose a pretty big threat. So the fighting was great. The art was great. Michelangelo, of course, at the end, he dies. And Casey Jones, she makes it right in the nick of time to say goodbye, basically, and for Michelangelo to give her Master Splinter's diary, which he had been writing in as well. And that's where it ends. Michelangelo dies right there, but then he's reunited with his brothers, with Master Splinter, and with Casey Jones. And I don't know, like, exactly when you flip that page and Michelangelo is waking up and he's with his brothers and Splinter and Casey Jones. I wasn't really following, like, what was that supposed to be? Are they all dead, and where are they? Like, it was weird. Like, he's reunited with them in the afterlife, I guess. I was a little fuzzy on that, like how that works and what that was supposed to be. For me, I don't know. It was hard to follow exactly like what that was supposed to mean. And I thought it was over, and I was like, you know what? Bravo. I was absolutely wrong. They did not make this entire run out to be something super fantastic for Ninja Turtles fans of old, and something to pay homage to the Mirage Studios universe and type of comic book reading, just to finish it off by saying, oh, well, guess what? We're getting rid of the Turtles, but Casey Jones Jr. is going to be here to take the reins of the franchise from here on out. I was so happy that they didn't do that. Except for when they did. Yeah, they did, actually. You flip the page, and here we go with an epilogue. And Casey Jones Jr. is training and reading through Splinter's manual, and we've continued to talk about the mutation and how powerful and strong she is. And now she has, April is working on some kind of tests for some kind of mutagen. And now Casey Jones Jr. is the last panel is her talking to 4 turtles in a tank. Wow. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to try to pull some, like, the turtles being reborn and she's trying, or if these are going to be a whole new set of turtles, but it says to be continued. So there's going to be continuation from this Ronin verse, which we already knew. And Casey Jones Jr. is going to be the entire centerpiece of it, which is what I've already said over and over again. And, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to follow it. I will not read it, pick it up. I have no interest in it. Could care less. So, if we take out the epilogue, I will say issue number 5, while it was not as good as issue number 1 or issue number 2 for that matter. I will say issue number 5, outside of the epilogue, was better than issue number 4 and issue number 3. So if I had to rank them, then I would say 1, 2, 5, 3, and 4. Now, if we're going to keep the epilogue in there, well, then this issue was probably the worst one because I knew what was going to happen. But I'd be interested in knowing what you guys thought. Did you even pick it up and read it? We are going to get a hardcover release. That's coming really, really soon. In fact, I think we can throw the date up right now for the release date of the last Ronin hardcover. So make sure you get that order if this is something that you really enjoyed, if you loved this series and you have any interest in putting that in your collection. I don't think that you're going to have to be fighting people over this at this point, honestly. But I'd love to hear you guys' opinions. Were you let down? Was it what you expected? Do you agree with me, or am I just being too hard on this last Ronin series? I don't know. I mean, it was hyped up so much. Are we at fault for hyping it up and getting it getting as excited as we did about this series? Is it our fault? Did we get ourselves so hyped up that it could not live up, that it had to be a letdown no matter what? I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought, though. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on it and conversate with you a little bit on there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you did it. And if you're not subscribed, it doesn't cost you anything to hit that button. It is all free, and then you'll get to see more of our content going forward. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. And as always, collect your way.